Let's get right into it. Number 10, duct tape. Duct tape wasn't invented to fix a leaky pipe or hold a bumper together. It was invented to seal ammunition crates in the middle of World War II. Soldiers needed a way to open sealed metal boxes fast, without tools, in the rain, under fire, without the contents getting wet or the seal failing at the worst possible moment. So Johnson & Johnson's Permacell division built a cloth-backed tape coated in a rubber-based adhesive, strong enough to tear cleanly by hand but tight enough to keep water out completely. Think of it like a zipper you never need scissors for, one that seals itself shut the second you press it down. Soldiers started calling it duct tape, because water rolled right off it the same way it rolls off a duck's feathers, and the name stuck long before the color did. Scientists at Permacell didn't design it to be silver either. That came later. After the war, construction workers realized the same tape-sealed heating ducts perfectly, dyed it to match the metal, and only then did it become duct tape in the way we know it. Military records from the era even describe it being torn straight off the roll with bare hands mid-assault, no knife required, because a soldier fumbling for a blade under fire was a soldier who might not make it back. The tape that holds your house together right now was originally built to keep bullets dry. Number 9, Aviator Sunglasses. Pilots in the 1930s kept coming back from high-altitude flights with headaches, nausea, and blurred vision, and for a while nobody could figure out why. The problem was glare. At 10,000 feet, sunlight bounces off cloud layers from every direction, not just from above, and it was quietly frying their eyes mid-flight without them even realizing it was happening. The U.S. Army Air Corps commissioned Bosch and Lomb to solve it, and engineers designed a teardrop-shaped lens specifically to cover the entire eye socket, including the peripheral light sneaking in from below the aircraft. It's basically a windshield built for your eyeballs instead of your car, curved to block light from angles a normal lens would never think to cover. Researchers tested dozens of tints before settling on one that cut glare without darkening a pilot's depth perception, which matters enormously when you're landing a plane on a runway you can barely see. General Douglas MacArthur wore a pair wading onto a beach in the Philippines in 1944, a photo that ran in newspapers across the country, and almost overnight, a piece of military safety equipment became a fashion icon. The shape sitting on your face right now was engineered to stop a fighter pilot from going blind mid-combat. Number 8, cargo pants. Before 1938, pockets were basically decoration, a place to keep spare change and not much else. Then the British Army designed a pair of trousers with oversized pockets stitched onto the thighs, and it changed what pants were for completely. Soldiers needed to carry maps, ammunition, and field dressings without a separate bag that could get lost, shot off, or left behind mid-advance when seconds mattered. Think of it like giving every soldier a utility belt woven directly into their uniform, so nothing they needed to survive was ever more than an arm's length away. The U.S. Army copied the design a few years later, and paratroopers loved it most of all because gear strapped to your legs doesn't shift or fall away when you're dropping out of a plane at 1,000 feet. Historians have documented entire supply chain redesigns built around this one pocket placement because it meant less critical equipment got lost or destroyed in combat. Decades later, teenagers in the 1990s wore the exact same pants to hold a Walkman and a phone that couldn't call anyone useful. The extra pocket on your leg right now was designed to save a soldier's life, not charge your headphones. Number 7, the wristwatch. Before World War I, wristwatches were considered women's jewelry, and any man caught wearing one risked being mocked for it. Men carried pocket watches, full stop, no exceptions. Then artillery officers needed to synchronize coordinated attacks down to the exact second, and nobody has a free hand to dig through their coat while shells are exploding around them and the ground is shaking. British watchmakers started soldering small wire lugs onto pocket watches and strapping them directly to soldiers' wrists, adding luminous dials so officers could read the time in a pitch-black trench without lighting a match. It's the same reason you don't check your phone with both hands full while carrying groceries up a flight of stairs. Historians call these trench watches, and by the end of the war, millions of men had come home wearing one every day without a second thought. Pocket watch sales collapsed within a decade, not because the pocket watch broke, but because an entire generation of men had gotten used to checking the time in a fraction of a second. The watch on your wrist exists because a soldier once couldn't afford to reach into his pocket. Number 6, the jerry can. The gas can sitting in your garage right now was designed by Nazi Germany, and most people who own one have absolutely no idea. In the 1930s, German engineers needed a fuel container that soldiers could carry 2 at a time, pour without a funnel, and stack tightly inside trucks without wasting a single inch of space. It's basically a Lego brick built for gasoline, made to click together, survive being thrown off a moving vehicle, and still not leak. An American engineer smuggled 3 captured cans back to the United States in 1939, before America had even entered the war. and military designers copied the shape almost exactly, right down to the air pocket that lets you pour without glugging or spilling. The Allies nicknamed it the jerry can because jerry was slang for German soldiers at the time. They literally named the container after the enemy who invented it and somehow kept using that name for the next 80 years without changing it. Even the small indentations pressed into the sides, the ones you've probably never thought twice about, were engineered to let the metal expand and contract with fuel vapor without splitting the seams. Every gasket shaped like a slightly rounded rectangle sitting in a garage or a shed is quietly still running on German military design. Number 5. Canned food. Napoleon's army wasn't losing soldiers to enemy fire nearly as much as it was losing them to spoiled food and scurvy on long marching campaigns. So in 1795, the French government offered a massive cash prize to anyone who could figure out how to preserve food for months without it rotting in transit. A confectioner named Nicholas Appert won it by sealing food inside glass jars and heating them, which somehow stopped the spoiling completely, though he had no idea why it worked. Think of it like hitting pause on an expiration date using nothing but heat and a sealed lid. Here's the strange part. Nobody understood the actual science yet. Germ theory didn't exist. Louis Pasteur wouldn't prove that bacteria caused spoilage for another 60 years. Appert had been killing bacteria in every single jar he sealed without knowing bacteria was even real, working entirely on trial and error. His method fed the French military successfully for decades before science finally caught up and explained what he'd actually been doing the whole time. The can of soup sitting in your pantry right now works on a discovery nobody understood at the moment it was made, and it fed armies for generations before a single scientist could explain why it didn't kill them. Number 4, superglue. Scientists during World War II were trying to build a clear plastic for gun sights, and every single test kept failing the same frustrating way. A chemical compound they had mixed together kept bonding instantly to every piece of equipment it touched, ruining the lenses before they could even be shaped properly. It was completely useless for gun sights, so researchers shelved it and moved on to other materials. That's like inventing a lock and getting angry because it refuses to stop locking. 10 years later, chemists rediscovered the same compound, now called cyanoacrylate, and realized the exact flaw everyone had rejected was actually the entire product. By the Vietnam War, combat medics were carrying it in spray canisters, using it to instantly seal a soldier's open wound shut in the field, stopping the bleeding long enough to get them to surgery alive. The compound bonds by reacting with tiny amounts of moisture in the surrounding air, which is exactly why it works so fast on human skin and so fast on your fingers. The glue you use to fix a coffee mug on your counter was designed to close a bullet wound in the middle of a jungle. Number 3, the Slinky. A naval engineer in 1943 was building tension springs meant to keep sensitive equipment stable on ships during rough combat seas. Springs precise enough to stop delicate instruments from shattering during heavy artillery fire. One afternoon, he accidentally knocked a spring off a shelf, and instead of just falling flat, it flipped end over end, walked itself across a stack of books, down onto a table, and kept right on going. Imagine spending years engineering a precision spring for a battleship and having it upstage the entire project by doing a magic trick in front of you. His wife eventually found the word slinky in a dictionary, meaning stealthy and graceful, and the toy sold 400,000 units in 90 minutes at its very first store demonstration in 1945. Here's the part almost nobody realizes. The exact steel tension that made it perfect for stabilizing warship instruments is the identical physics that makes it walk down your stairs today. It wasn't a design flaw that accidentally got repurposed into a toy. It was the same precise design, doing exactly what it was engineered to do, just somewhere completely different than intended. Number 2, the microwave oven. An engineer named Percy Spencer was standing near an active radar system at Raytheon during World War II when he noticed the chocolate bar sitting in his pocket had completely melted into a mess. Radar systems use a device called a magnetron to send out microwaves that bounce off distant aircraft and reveal their position, and Spencer realized that those same waves were somehow cooking his candy straight through his coat. So he tested it on purpose. He pointed the magnetron at a bag of popcorn kernels, and they popped right there in the lab. Then he tried an egg, and it exploded in a colleague's face. It's basically radar's leftover energy, except instead of hunting for enemy planes, it's exciting water molecules inside your food until they generate enough heat to cook it. The first commercial version, released in 1947, stood nearly 6 feet tall, weighed hundreds of pounds, and cost more than a car, built almost entirely from repurposed military radar components. It took another 20 years of shrinking that same wartime technology before it was small enough to sit on a kitchen counter. The box reheating your leftovers right now used to hunt enemy aircraft in the sky. Number 1, the internet. In the 1960s, the US military faced a terrifying problem. If a single missile destroyed one central communications hub, the entire country's ability to coordinate any kind of response could collapse almost instantly, leaving the government blind and disconnected. So engineers were ordered to build something that had never existed before, a communications network with no single point of failure, one where information could reroute itself around any destroyed piece and still arrive at its destination. Imagine a city where every single road could be bombed out at any moment, and there would always be another way to reach where you're going, because no one road was ever allowed to be the only option. In 1969, that project, called ARPANET, connected its first 4 computers between university research labs, a modest beginning for something built to survive the end of the world. The routing method they invented to survive a nuclear war became the foundation of TCP/IP, the exact protocol every phone, laptop, and website on Earth still quietly runs on today. Here's the detail that should genuinely unsettle you. The internet doesn't have an off switch, not because nobody thought to build one, but because the engineers spent years deliberately making sure one could never exist. The complete lack of central control wasn't an oversight anyone missed. It was the entire point of the design from the very beginning. Every object on this list was built by someone trying to survive something. A war, a battlefield, a crisis nobody could afford to lose, a problem urgent enough that failure meant people didn't come home. And somehow, decades later, all of it ended up sitting quietly in your kitchen drawer, your closet, and your pocket, doing nothing more dramatic than reheating leftovers, holding up a picture frame, or checking the time before a meeting. None of it was ever supposed to end up there. It was supposed to end a war, and it ended up in your junk drawer instead. That's all for today. I'll be making similar videos in the future.